Season of Discovery Phase 4 is finally coming. We don't have to wait that much longer, as we literally only have to wait 2 weeks. The launch date will be July 11th, and we got a ton of news about everything that's coming at level 60, so I'm gonna break it down for you guys as quickly as I can. First of all, you can check out an entire preview video on the Warcraft YouTube channel, but of course we're getting level 60 and all of the level 60 content that comes with that. That means you can get all of your talents, you can get the new glyphs that are gonna be your cloak slot glyphs, which you've seen a lot on the PTR, but they're actually probably getting a lot of adjustments this week, as well as we're probably going to see a ton of class tuning on the PTR, most likely, as Agron actually tweeted out recently that he locked some of the devs in a room for 8 hours just to work on class tuning to try to get that right, which is incredibly important. Obviously, we get AV and epic mounts. That doesn't really change too much. They also clarified a little bit about Molten Core and how it's going to happen. It will be a 20-man raid with one extra new boss. 11 bosses, usually it's 10, fully revamped tier 1 sets. We also have revamped tier 0 and tier 0.5 sets, and we also have revamped offset items, and the new difficulty levels from turning up the heat won't actually give you better gear. It'll actually give you the exact same gear, but it will drop more items, so it'll be more prestigious to go for, and probably be like, let's say if you defeated Heroic Lich King, you always got like the mount invincible, something like that. You're gonna get a lot more of those rare items a lot quicker, which will make gearing up a lot faster. But while I'm on the topic of the Molten Core raid itself, the raid release schedule is actually going to be 2 weeks after launch. So you will have a ton of time to level up and get your pre-bis gear, because in week 2 of launch, you will be able to do like the world bosses, and then Molten Core will launch on the 25th. So you won't see a race to world first right as launch happens, which I know a lot of world first guilds are pretty disappointed about, but as a casual player, you're probably really excited. You don't have to feel rushed. And there's also going to be a twice weekly lockout, which is actually pretty exciting. Right now, you're just kind of raid logging and doing Sunken Temple once, and then it's just waiting the entire week doing it again. So now you will be able to have resets on NA for Tuesday, Saturday, which means for EU, it's most likely then going to be Wednesday, Sunday. Alliance are also getting Warchief's Blessing, which is one of the hugest qualms that most ally players that play the game seriously were having, is that they're losing out on Warchief's Blessing. It is now called the Might of Stormwind. This is one of the biggest, if not the biggest buff usually for all melee DPS. So this is going to be huge for your damage. Incursions will not be used as your primary way of leveling, although you can turn in the quests up to level 53, but you can only do them once a day, so they're like a daily. You'll also obviously have the 50% XP buff that we've pretty much had for most of Season of Discovery up to level 60, and Sunken Temple will give you quite a bit of XP. So you'll see people turn in all of like incursion quests, just have 20 stacked up or something. It's a daily, so you can only do it once for all of those, and then you will go into Sunken Temple. But it's not like a leveling rush like it usually would be, because you don't need to get into the raid. You've got 2 full weeks to get into the raid. It's a very long time to get previous gear, which at least there's a new system to make all of the dungeons relevant for a lot longer, because they're adding a new currency, kind of like badges, like literally like badges, that basically drops off of all of the dungeon bosses that aren't anything like a rare spawn boss. So we're now getting the tarnished Undermine Reals, and these are gonna be able to buy quite a bit of things. Apparently there's going to be like crafting materials, crafting items, new gear potentially. I would actually anticipate, which is going to be kind of crazy, so like this is like a huge guess, but you might be able to get things like Arcanite bars, which would like Thunder Fury enjoyers, hello. We'll see what happens with these, but it definitely is exciting. You can farm these pretty quickly. You do 1 a day per boss, so basically do like an entire round of all of the high-end dungeons. There's gonna be world tours now while you're farming your gear, instead of normal pre-bis lists. Farming in classic World of Warcraft is basically spamming like rend runs 500 times in a row until you get lucky. So we're gonna see how that changes things up. It's a little bit exciting. We're gonna see how that changes things up, especially with a lot of new loot that's coming out, as well as new profession loot. There's actually quite a bit of new profession loot that looks pretty good, as well as like the new dungeon loot. We're definitely gonna get a lot stronger, which makes sense since we're like already doing 2 to 3,000 DPS on some fights. Shout out to warriors. But so we're definitely going to see a lot of the items that is normally dropping in those dungeons that we're going to be farming at level 60 are going to be a lot stronger, as well as we already have the pre-base gear. We have the tier 0.5, and there's new raid gear that's actually getting really strong, as well as like new and unique items that are pretty cool. And they even mentioned new rep gear and crafting gear. So we're going to see like a totally new meta of crafting gear. I would anticipate your pre-base gear is definitely going to come from crafting, as well as there's probably going to be like an epic crafting item. And they even said that blacksmiths will be able to switch with leatherworking, like it'll be interchangeable, which is pretty cool, as well as like the Hydraxian Waterlord, Thorium Brotherhood, excuse me, and also the Timbermaw reps will be giving new and better items as you level that up. Blood Moon in STV is basically just gonna be an honor farm. You won't need to go here for new gear. And then there's the new PvE PvP event called the Blackrock Eruption. That's going to happen every 2 hours, and outside in the open world near Blackrock Mountain, you will be able to have like new quests that can also give you a totally enhanced way of getting your reputation and leveling up Thorium Brotherhood rep really fast. But inside of the mountain itself, you will basically have an entire like war zone, a PvP event where you're just gonna farm a crazy amount of honor. Thank God for Chrono Boon, because if you didn't have this, imagine one of these events is going on during your raid times. It literally would be impossible to make it to Molten Core with your buffs. And especially we're gonna get Blackwing Lair and all of those. And the other raids like Doomlord Kha'Zix, as well as Onyxia and even Azure Ghost, those are all gonna be now tuned for 20-man raids, whereas you can also still bring more than 20 people, but they're also gonna be instanced. So you don't need to fight for world bosses. I think this makes it a lot easier for the casual player, which is again, something that's kind of nice. This one I kind of love, because if you're in a hardcore guild, you would literally get like 50 Discord pings at 4:30 in the morning because someone was there scouting and Azure Ghost spawned, and they would expect everyone to be there, and they would call your phone because your Discord is muted, and they would wake you up. So we don't have to do that anymore. Most people don't have to remember that experience. Every tryhard guild had to, we're done with that. And lastly for today, there is going to be a brand new dungeon, which if we look at it here, looks like which looks like to me it would be something like the demon area in Winterspring for a brand new dungeon. We're gonna need to race to find that out, as well as this really changes the race to world first. All of the news that came out today is gonna be, you're gonna have enough time to find all of your runes. You're gonna have a perfect raid comp, and as well as people will have ults ready for the world first race. Hopefully Molten Core, especially on the harder levels, is actually challenging, so there is a world first race instead of everybody just being able to blow through it, which would have happened normally in Sunken Temple if we just had enough time to like gear up and run into the raid with like a normal raid comp. So I'm nervous that it will be less exciting, but I'm hoping that it is a challenge, and the world first race will be a lot of fun. But that's all of the news that came out today. June 11th, 2 weeks, guys, 2 weeks, and we are in it. Season of Discovery, Phase 4. We're back.